Welcome back to Star Wars Shovelware, my name's Luke, and today on the channel we're going to be taking a look at Haunted Zombie School on the Nintendo Switch, a third-person shooter in which you play as a student trapped in a school full of zombies, and alongside your fellow classmates must find a way to escape, fighting your way through the undead masses using a variety of weapons. Now, this review actually came as a request from a viewer, so if you've got any other suggestions for games you'd like to see covered on the channel, then leave your suggestions in the comments section below and I'll see what I can do. For now though, hit that like button, subscribe for more Switch game reviews and content, and let's get into it. So a quick one before we get started, I actually have a game key to give away for this one, so if you're watching before the 10th of July 2022, stay tuned to find out how you can enter into the draw for it. Now, the story in Haunted Zombie School opens with a bit of a cutscene where we see this one student looking a bit worse for wear, shuffling his way down into a classroom. The teacher there scolds him for being late again, paying no attention to his dishevelled and bloodied clothing, and he then proceeds to full-on motorboat her before chowing down on her, after which all hell breaks loose as we see the school overrun by the undead. The game's main campaign mode though has us playing as one of two characters, the first being a rather generic looking female student, and the second is an emo who can barely see beyond his ridiculous 90s fringe, and the story has us trapped inside the school along a few other useless students. Venturing out from the safety of our classroom, we head to various locations about the school, eventually confirming beyond all doubt that this is indeed zombies that we're dealing with and that we must find a way to escape. But the whole ordeal is just a disjointed one and really doesn't make much sense at all. There's nothing really explained as we cut from one mission to the next, like searching for medical supplies for someone who somehow got injured despite them never leaving the classroom, or moving to the cafeteria down the hall when prepping to escape the school, despite already being in a safe location. Overall, the plot is neither engaging nor logical, in total taking 15 missions for the students to finally decide that it might actually be a good idea to leave the school. So if you're looking for a zombie game with a good narrative, unfortunately you won't find it here. But if you're up for some complete lack of common sense, then this game is definitely for you. Now, gameplay wise, upon first starting the game, I instantly got the sense that this one was intended to be a mobile release, and indeed reminiscent of these games, it features both a leveling system and an in-game shop, with you earning cash from missions to buy and upgrade equipment a la in-app purchase systems. Getting into the actual game though, there are 3 different game modes, 2 of which are gated behind specific criteria, but the first available one is the campaign mode, which, like I said, sees you embarking on various missions as you establish that you're trapped inside a school full of zombies and must find a way to escape. Now, throughout the campaign you're accompanied by another female student who will travel and fight alongside you, however the AI programming of said partner is incredibly inconsistent. She's completely useless to begin with and sometimes doesn't feel like fighting at all, but after somehow tooling her up with a heavy machine gun, she turned into fucking Rambo and started absolutely obliterating every zombie in her path. Though again, her AI fails her at times, and she frequently decides she's just gonna beat them to death with a thing. You are able to issue commands to her though using the D-pad, ordering her to follow you or defend certain locations, though she regularly just fails to do so, often gets stuck in stairwells, and I frequently found myself just mashing the follow button over and over just so that she'd keep up with me. Now, the game's controls are also a bit of a slog. The movement and attacking are your standard third-person shooter setup, allowing you to shoot from the hip or aim down sights by holding ZL, but despite there being other buttons available, your evasive roll manoeuvre is performed by double tapping a direction, and this means that it constantly activates on its own, making it look like we're playing some kind of emo Dark Souls. The action button is bound to A, which for some reason is also the crouch button, so you'll constantly be hammering out the squats whilst picking up items, opening doors or conversing with fellow classmates, and another complete oversight can be found when using secondary weapons like grenades, as from what I could tell there was no way to switch back to primary weapons without first using them all up. In general though, combat in the game is relatively weak. Melee attacks will have you confronting zombies face to face, where you'll usually just end up taking a bunch of damage due to there being no knockback from your attacks, and your bullets are hit and miss, literally. Your health bar is displayed at the bottom of the screen as a green bar, with your allies below a portrait in the bottom right corner, and if either of you lose all of your health and die then it's game over. But like most of the game, this is glitchy as hell, and many times I just ended up dying without actually having all of my health drained. If however you manage to complete a mission and level up, you get congratulation, which is nice. Now there are ammo crates and medical boxes strewn about the place for a quick top me up, but more importantly are the random weapons, which are an absolute godsend when you don't yet have the cash or levels to unlock them in the shop, which, speaking of, actually has a large variety of primary and secondary weapons to select from, which include assault rifles, shotguns, sniper rifles, pistols and grenades. Fuck knows where these students are buying these from, perhaps your average everyday army surplus school tuck shop, but once purchased the stats for these can be upgraded, millimetre by millimetre, but to be honest the stats don't mean much anyway, and none of the weapons I used felt particularly effective. Not that it matters though, as zombie AI is about as shite as the rest of it. Zombies pop up at random out of the floor, often right beside you. Sometimes they attack, sometimes they just stand there and do nothing, but they really don't pose much of a threat to anyone, other than your absolute moron of a partner of course. Now the game's missions generally come in one of two forms, the first being fetch missions, which are usually incredibly short, requiring you to grab an object and proceed to a specific location, and the second being battle missions, where you're locked inside a specific room in the school and have to fend off a certain number of zombies, though the battle missions can usually be completed without you having to lift a finger if your partner is on point and aimbotting the zombies down as soon as they spawn. Neither mission is particularly challenging though, and while you are rewarded with gold and XP for completing them, I only bought one weapon from the shop throughout my entire time playing, and that was only used to free my partner if she got stuck amongst a group of zombies. Overall, the campaign mode is pretty meh, and while you do have the option of replaying completed levels via a chapter select menu, I'm not entirely sure why you'd want to. Aside from the campaign mode though, the two other modes are a wave based mode which unlocks once you've completed chapter 10, and a sniper mode which unlocks after purchasing a sniper rifle from the shop. The wave mode is like the battle missions, but instead of enemies constantly spawning, you get waves of around 10 or so zombies, though again the poor AI makes every wave a cakewalk, and the only reason to play this mode is to earn a shitload of gold from killing zombies. The sniper mode on the other hand has you stood atop the roof of the school picking off zombies at a distance, and it requires you to kill all of the zombies within the allotted time period. While some zombies can be a little difficult to spot or shoot due to obstructions with the terrain, there is a minimap to help you locate them, so again very little challenge with this mode, and the rewards for playing it are meagre in comparison to wave mode. All in all, while there is a reasonable amount of variety to the game modes, and the unlocks provide a decent amount of progressional incentive, the game in general is just not very good, and I'd go so far as saying it feels unfinished and like a hastily thrown together port. Compared with some of the other Switch zombie games, this one does have a little more in terms of overall content, but it's still really not something that I'd recommend. It's severely overpriced for the quality of gameplay on offer, and the eShop's description contains plenty of bollocks. There are no big or small zombies, there's about 3 normal sized ones, I have no idea what the special attacks are supposed to be, the vast and diverse worlds don't actually exist, and when it says join forces with your friend, it really means your dumb AI companion and not a second player. So yeah, Overall, not great stuff. So at a stretch, I'd say the game looks reasonably decent. The character models aren't bad, and at least some of the rooms in the school contain a decent amount of furniture. The outdoor areas are expectedly barren, and there's a total of 3 zombie models for you to enjoy, but the textures in the game aren't too bad. Audio wise, again it's okay but nothing special. The weapons all sound decent, we get the usual zombie sounds to enjoy like and the game's music is fine to play along to. Overall a little mobile-like but not too bad. So on the performance side of things, the game never quite hits a solid 30 frames per second, and in certain rooms I'd say it even drops down to around 20 or so, but it does remain playable enough to get by with. Issues, I've already mentioned quite a few, mainly to do with poor AI, questionable controls, mediocre combat and uninspiring campaign missions, but aside from this, hitboxes for the enemies are also a major issue, with your shots deciding as and when they'll actually hit them, and in one of the battle missions the enemies stopped spawning, meaning that I couldn't actually complete it. Overall though, like I said, the game feels like it was hastily thrown together, and that little to no quality control was exerted, leading to a few bugs and plenty of jank. It's not altogether terrible, but it's certainly not the best zombie game that I've ever played, and I definitely feel like the inclusion of a 2-player mode would have really improved things, but still not enough to warrant a purchase at its current undiscounted price. And so when it comes down to my own personal rating, I'm going to be giving Haunted Zombie School 2 out of 5 stars. So far as the Switch selection of zombie games go, I'd say that this one is up there with some of the better ones, which says a lot about the state of the eShop and this particular genre of game. It's overpriced and the gameplay is a bit of a mess, but you could do much worse. And so that about does it for this review of Haunted Zombie School on the Nintendo Switch, but if some of you are still watching at this point and are still interested in winning that game key, then comment down below with your best zombie impression, and let me know what you think the best zombie Switch games are, as I'm looking to put together a list sometime in the near future. With that said though, hit that like button, subscribe to support the channel and to be notified of future reviews and content. Thanks once again for watching, and until next time, take care of yourself and game on.